When I died I became a wandering spirit moving all over the city with the speed of thought. I saw the living and the dead sharing the same environment. I was in the world of the dead and the street of the city was full of dead people running all over the place and complaining about their fate. There was agitation in the world of the dead but relative calm in the world of the living. The dead were able to see their loved ones but the latter could not see them, for there is no contact between the dead and the living. In the unseen world I saw grave realities and horrible spectacle. I was wandering in part of the capital. I saw a group of people walking. They were naked. When I looked again I saw that these people had horns on their heads. They were wizards. There was a demon leading these sorcerers. They were dressed in black. I saw that the demon who was the leader of these sorcerers wore human skin like a cloth that containing human blood. It is obvious that I was indeed in the spirit world, able to see what normal men cannot see. I saw that these sorcerers were dragging a man tied up on the body. This captive was also tied at the neck with a chain like a dog, and he was dragged like a dog in the street and he moved on 4 legs. I was seized with fear and I understood that I was not in the physical world but in the spiritual world. We do not only have this world that we see with our physical eyes, there is another world that we don't see. The material world is overlay with the invisible world, the spiritual world that I saw. Decide over the material world. I kept watching this man that was dragged by witches and he was begging for mercy. I understood that it wasn't his physical body, it was actually his soul, and the Lord allowed me to witness the captivity of many souls in the unseen world. The voice of the Lord was speaking to me about the spiritual representation, for the witches need something to represent you in the spiritual world, and that's what they will use for your destruction. This man was asking for intercession because his wife was a Christian, and he was also begging for mercy from his executioner. It was unbearable to see a human being in this state. I told the witches, "You must free this captive quickly." Their leader, who also had horns, looked at me and looked at his sorcerers and said to his servants, "Ignore him, we must move on." These demons and the sorcerers ignored me and continued to drag his captives with them. When they reached their meeting place, they began to make incantations of invocations. They sang, they turned all around the captive soul. They declared words of curse on their victim. I saw that from their mouths came out things like splashes that consumed every part of the body of this man, and he let out an atrocious cry. It was terrifying, the spectacle. I noticed that these sorcerers making accusation and highlighting the crimes and infraction committed by this man on earth. And the one who was the leader was proclaiming the crime of this man when he said to him, "You were found guilty of sins." This demon accused this man, revealing his conduct and his infidelity towards his own wife. This sin of infidelity served as a doorway and open a spiritual door so that they could capture his soul. While these wizards were saying incantations and magic prayer, this captive soul was transformed into an animal. When there was transformation, they butchered his flesh and shared his meat, and I saw them consume his flesh and they devoured his whole body, and it was disturbing. When I saw these demons and sorcerers eating the flesh of this man, I was afraid. I feared to be devoured by them, and I left the place and continued to wander around the city. I saw people performing satanic and diabolical rituals in the middle of the boulevards to cause traffic accident. No one could see them. I saw people performing satanic and diabolical rituals in the middle of churches to destroy the assembly of the children of God. I saw people performing satanic and diabolical rituals in the middle of public places, at the top of trees. Some people were casting spells on the souls here and there. I saw such strange things in the city. The spiritual world is horrifying. In this spiritual state I began to distinguish between the dead person and ordinary human being, because this experience started at 10 p.m., and I wander the earth around those hours. I saw dead people wander around the city and I ran like them looking for help. I found myself around our local cemetery. When I arrived very close to the cemetery, I stood on the other side of the road, and I was now observing the cemetery right in front of me. I then saw someone who was sitting at the entrance of the cemetery in front of a table, and he had a list in his hand. This man had very sharp eyes. I wondered, how is this gentleman sitting in this place in the dark? I stayed observing him in the middle of the darkness and he was undisturbed. The Lord wanted me to be the witness of these reality. Suddenly, I noticed a group of people coming out of the cemetery when lightning and thunder struck many tombs that opened up. When a thunder struck a particular tomb, it opened up and dead person came out. It was late at night. I saw that these people had immaterial and spiritual bodies instead of physical. Now this group of people who were coming out of the cemetery were not ordinary human beings. They lined up in front of this man who was sitting on the chair at the entrance of the cemetery with his list. These dead stood in line in front of this man to sign his registration book before leaving the cemetery. Each one came to write his name, and then crossed the road to take a taxi. Each one wrote his name on the list and left for the city. The demons also accompanied them. It was as if the demons came to look for them to get them out of that place. When they were leaving the cemetery, I observed another group of the dead that was returning from their expedition from the city coming back to enter the cemeteries. They also did the same exercise, writing their name in the notebook of this gentleman, and they returned to their grave. I observed a man that came out of the cemetery. He took the sand from the ground and splashed it above his head and quickly transformed into an ordinary man. He became a physical human being. I saw that this dead person was a handsome man, well dressed and trying to get a taxi to go into the city. A second one did the same process of splashing sand in the air and also became a physical human being. This dead person became a very beautiful woman, with a lot of hair. She wore tight clothes, a tight undershirt that exposed her thigh. She held a bag like an earthly woman. I saw this woman walking down the street in the middle of the night and trying to stop a car. She wore a skirt and her belly was exposed. She was of a fair complexion and she had long hair of women that we know of, hair plants that we called cabello. No man passes by without taking a second look at her, a look of lust. While the Bible says that whoever looks at a woman to lust after her has already committed adultery, the woman was remarkable. She had a beauty of extreme exaggeration. Then I saw a driver who stopped his car, in order to make advances to the lady without knowing that she was a dead person. When the driver began to make advances to her, I approached and told the man, "She just came out of the grave and left the cemetery. Be careful, she is not an ordinary woman." The woman had two eyes behind her head and she said to me, "Sir, mind your own business, this does not concern you." And suddenly the driver took the woman and transported her to the city. I said to myself, what will be the fate of this man? I continued to see people leaving the cemetery. Some of the deads took photo from other grave, and they took the shape of the people in the photo using their appearance. I saw terrible things happened in this place. I then saw people coming to the cemetery. I realized these were occultists. They came with expensive cars. They were highly qualified people, financially well off. They were politicians. They were wealthy people. Even though their money was dirty, they parked their cars nearby and got out. They observed the movement of people to avoid being seen, and they promptly entered the cemetery. I could see them going towards a tomb. I decided to follow them to see. They entered the cemetery and walked along the paths of the tombs. I was behind them to see the reality of the unseen world and report to the saints. I witnessed a terrible spectacle, and inside the cemetery I saw tombs. Unlike daytime, some tombs looked like houses, others looked like cave. While I was behind these people who were performing rituals and incantations, I saw that some tombs were completely white like bright light. I could see the light on these tombs, and I noticed that these occultists who were performing rituals avoided these shining tombs. Above the white tomb was like street lamps. I contemplated these street lamps that gave off a light all around the tomb. When I approached these brightening tombs, I saw that each of them had a book. That was the Bible, but a large Bible, the likes of which I had never seen on earth. It was placed above this tomb, and it was so voluminous. I was admiring the light when I began to hear words coming out of the bright tomb, which say, "Blessed to the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, they shall rest from their labor, and their works follow them." The voice was perfectly repeating Revelation chapter 14 verse 13, which speaks of the dead in Christ because they rest from their works. In addition, there were hymns and the melodies of heaven that could be heard inside these brightening tombs. I was in admiration. Then the voice that spoke to me told me that these are the tomb of the Christians. When they died, their bodies are kept here on earth. God puts a seal so that evil people and ill-intentioned practitioners of the world of darkness do not come and destroy and try to make claims. When I left the tombs of the dead in Christ, I was curious and follow what these groups of occultists that were doing incantations while invoking the name of a deceased woman. I saw the photo of the woman they were summoning, and after a few minutes of invocations I saw flashes like thunderbolts that fell on this tomb which was torn apart. Suddenly I saw the poor woman come out of her tomb. When the dead woman came out I saw these people address her. They told her, "We are the one that have killed you, we have sacrificed you for our practices. Now we have come to get you because you have a mission to carry out for us. Now this is what you will do. You will be brought into our company and you will occupy the company's cabin. This is where your spirit will be kept, because it is you who will start to do marketing and promoting our company. It is you who will prosper our company." And the poor lady didn't say anything. She still looked like a dead person. I saw these people removing cotton from her nose and ears, and then they left with the woman who said absolutely nothing. When I left them, I found another group of people in the cemetery. They were from a multinational fast food company that is operating in the country. These people were executives of the international fast food that has more and more restaurants in the city. They were actually Lebanese. They were also making an invocation above a tombstone, upon which it was written, "One of our favorite customer." I immediately realized that the dead person was one of their customers who had died. We must be careful with these global fast food. These people are signing pact with unclean spirit, and these entrepreneurs were invoking the spirit of a person who used to come to their restaurant, and when they brought him out of the grave, the dead person stood on the tombstone. They said to him, "We have come to use your body to do a mission for us, for when you were still on earth you always came to eat in our restaurant. You were one of our favorite customers, which is why we had sacrificed you." I understood that this person died in human sacrifice because he liked going to eat in this particular fast food restaurant. I understood that by eating in fast food restaurant that is in alliances with demons we become liable to be slaughter and butcher in human sacrifice. You may fall victim by eating in these evil popular fast food brand. The sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons, not to God. And I do not want you to be participants with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons too. You cannot partake in the table of the Lord and the table of demons too. And these entrepreneurs told the lady victim of human sacrifice, in the same way that you were coming to eat at our restaurant and buy a meal that was human flesh, thinking that you are eating animal meat. Our customers will eat your flesh thinking that they are eating animal meat. We were selling you human meat, the flesh of other customer like you that we had sacrifice, that we had summoned from a tombstone, and since you were one of our customers who ate human flesh, we also came to get you so that you could do the same exercise. You will be transformed into chicken flesh, that we will serve to the people who come to our restaurant. They will eat your flesh in our restaurant, thinking that they are eating chicken, and since they will eat your flesh, they too will suffer the same punishment of human sacrifice like you. When our customers eat your flesh in the form of chicken, your flesh will be used as a tool to confiscate their chances and stars. Beloved, I understood that people who like eating in these fast food restaurants that have signed contracts with demons have their chance and stars stolen and confiscated. These businessmen say to the lady here, "What we're going to do with you is what will happen to the customers who eat your flesh." These are terrible reality of the unseen world that I witness. Brethren, I'm offering you this KFC commercial to give you an idea of what I am talking about. Look carefully at this advertisement to illustrate what I'm explaining to you. The commercial started with a human being who in the end was transformed into a chicken at the end. That was literally what I was seeing in that place. That's how these popular restaurant worked. They did incantation and declare words. As a result, the woman was turned to chicken meat that would be eaten in the restaurant in the square. After seeing all these horrible scenes, I arrived again in front of tombs. I saw a group of sorcerers who were making the invocation. They began to make declarations of incantatory words. They made the person come out of the grave. When the latter came out, he also stood silent on the tombstone and said absolutely nothing. The sorcerers began to laugh at him in a way that you cannot imagine. It is then that the voice of the Lord began to explain to me and said, "Listen to what they are doing and understand the reality." While these people were making their incantation, they began to speak in very strange languages. I saw these sorcerers who mocked their victim by laughing sarcastically, and they said, "You are stubborn, you thought you were special, who did you think you were? Now today we have killed you, and we came to retrieve your body because we have to eat and consume you." These witches kept laughing and making fun of the victim like crazy. They did incantations and turned their victim to an animal, and I saw the body of this lady transformed into an animal. The voice of the Lord explained to me, "This is sorcerer's ritual, and they killed this person on earth, made sure to maintain his Christian sibling distracted, and the latter thought it was just one of these illness and he will be fine, and these believers never made serious prayer to cast out this sickness." The witches knew that the victim family was made up of several people who pray. They were afraid that his brothers and sisters that are pastors may come to pray for him and recover his spirit that was arrested. Before death the victim had experienced a spiritual arrest, and could have been freed by prayer.